statements by ministers, items under public business, and private members' motions. But before we begin, let's try a parliamentary trivia question. True or false? A parliamentary secretary leads the daily operations of the parliament. Get the answer at the end of this introduction. On this session's agenda, the Customs Act 2020 is to be taken. The Customs Act itself is the basic statute which governs entry or exit of different categories of vessels, aircrafts, goods, passengers, etc. into or outside the country. Under public business, the sectoral debate presentations continues with two members down to speak. Member of Parliament for Clarendon South Eastern and Minister of Labour and Social Security, Pearnel Charles Jr., will be making his contribution. Member of Parliament for St. Andrews South West and Opposition Spokesperson for Foreign and Regional Affairs, Dr. Angela Brown Burke, will also be making her contribution. That's what's on the agenda. It should be noted that elements of the day's agenda can be changed or moved. But before we go, here are a few things you should bear in mind if you plan to attend a session at Gordon House. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the House. No visitor shall be admitted to the House without first obtaining an admission card. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the House during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed, unless so authorized by the presiding officer. It's almost time to go to the main event, but before that, let's get the answer to our trivia question. We asked, true or false? A parliamentary secretary leads the daily operations of the parliament. It's false. A parliamentary secretary is a member of parliament in the Westminster system who assists a more senior minister with their duties. In several countries, the position has been redesigned as assistant or junior minister. Just last week, Senator Abka Fitzhenley assumed the role of parliamentary secretary in the office of the Prime Minister. Parliamentary secretaries play a vital, if often unrecognized, role in assisting cabinet ministers and providing a link between ministers and parliamentarians, given that the role of parliamentary secretary is largely defined by the Prime Minister. Now over to the proceedings.
The National Family Planning Board now presents a parenting tip from Jacqueline Kennedy. There are many little ways to enlarge your child's world. Love of books is the best of all.
Turn the children's corner and check into the Burchester Hotel. Help Super Grover save the day. Order a snack and even learn to bake a cake with Cookie Monster and Chef Gonger. It's Elmo's wonderful world, and we're living in it. Friends, food, and fun. It's always a great time. Sesame Street, Monday to Saturday inside Children's Corner on PBCJ, the People's Station.
Remember, gambling is just a game. Choose to gamble responsibly. Set a budget, avoid chasing losses, and stop gambling when you reach your money limit. For gambling help, call RISE 888-991-4146. A message from the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission.
Keep that smile on their faces and preserve their innocence. Cherish the moments you have with them and create the best memories. Let's inspire our children to dream big and work hard to achieve all they aspire to be. Take the time to listen to our children and really hear their side of the story. Our children deserve love and the right to access their basic needs. Do your part and protect our children.
Hi.
princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that, we having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, and true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You may be seated. Welcome to today's sitting. This Honourable House resumes its sitting. It's indeed a pleasure to be here, and we welcome you to the Honourable House of Representatives for this sitting dated Wednesday, May 29, 2024. I would like to also welcome those who are joining us on the various social media platforms, particularly PBCJ, and would like to make welcome, especially the many persons who are located in the gallery. Welcome to the sitting. Call of the roll.
Mr. Clark. Here. Mr. Bartlett. Mr. Holness. Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Charles Jr., Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terrelong, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Whittle, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Enriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Siblis, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Wright. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I wish to join you in welcoming members to this sitting, and particularly to welcome the members of the gallery led by the wife of Minister of Labor and National Insurance and Social Security. But National Insurance is right. The members of his constituency from the southeastern Clarendon, and of course, members of this ministry and other participants who are here representing agriculture. Welcome to you all, and as per usual, you guys have me out today, I tell you. It's been a long day from the Ministry of Labor. Why agriculture is in my mind is because it is, yes, and it is so important, in fact, to what I have to do elsewhere. So welcome to you all. And I am given note that Mr. St. Patrice Ennis, President of the Jamaica Federation of Trade Union, is also with us. Ms. Donna Sacchetti, the head of Sacchetti Satellite Office of the United Nations World Food Program, the Caribbean Multi-Country Office. Welcome to you, sir. Ms. Dion O'Connor, Operations Officer of the World Bank, and of course, Mr. Omar Azan, Chairman of the Advisory Board of the Jamaica Productivity Center. Quite a very august body of very eminent persons who are here to witness. Madam Speaker, we, as per, yes, we did mention the team from the Ministry of Labor, who are also in the well of the House. Madam Speaker, as per our custom, we will proceed straight to public business and deal with the matter of the continuation of the debate on the sectoral debate. And of course, today our speakers are the Minister of Labor and Social Security, the Honorable Pearnel Charles, and the member from St. Andrew Southwest, Dr. Brown Burke. May I therefore invite you to suspend the agenda items leading to the public business to facilitate those two presentations. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, House Leader. The question is that we suspend all agenda items and go directly to public business. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. We will commence, as indicated by House Leader, with the presentation of the Minister for Labor and Social Security, the member who hails from Clarendon Southeastern. Let's make him welcome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, colleagues. May I proceed, Madam Speaker? As a Jamaican, let me say that again. As a Jamaican, I stand before you with a deep sense of responsibility and urgency as we address the critical issues facing our nation's most vulnerable populations Our mission, Madam Speaker, as stewards of social justice and economic opportunity is to ensure that every citizen, regardless of their circumstances, has access to the support and resources they need to lead dignified and productive lives. The challenges are significant, but so too is our commitment to overcoming them. Madam Speaker, I lead the People's Ministry where no one is left behind. Madam Speaker, I am profoundly grateful to God for the strength, wisdom, and guidance that sustains me. As the psalmist say, the Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall. The Lord upholds him with his hand. Though discernment, Madam Speaker, is not listed as a fruit of the Spirit, it remains a gift from the Almighty that our leader, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, has been blessed with. Thank you, Prime Minister, for entrusting me with the People's Ministry, where we take care of the most vulnerable. Madam Speaker, family is a compass that guides us. They are the inspiration to reach great heights and our comfort. Madam Speaker, I am forever grateful to my wife and children for their unwavering support and many sacrifices when I perform my duties as minister. I want to thank them. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Madam Speaker, colleagues, some 17 years ago, a gentleman you all know, Chief Ogebe of Agara, Pearnel Charles Sr., stood here in this honorable house as the then Minister of Labor and Social Security. He is still the best role model that I could ask for. Wonderful. And I thank him as well as Gloria Charles, my mother. My parents provided all the tools that myself and my siblings needed to be successful in a challenging and competitive world. I remain grateful to them for all that they have done. I want to thank, Madam Speaker, in particular, my sister, the Member of Parliament from Eastern St. Thomas, Dr. Michelle Charles, who sits with me, and all of my siblings and family members who continue to be a pillar of strength. Madam Speaker, I've been fortunate also to be paired with one of the brightest minds in government. To my Minister of State, Dr. the Honorable Norman Dunn, thank you for your sharp eye and tireless drive to protect, empower, and uplift our Jamaican people. Madam Speaker, no man is an island, and I want to express my gratitude to the leadership team and staff within my ministry and agencies, along with our managers and staff in all of our parish offices across Jamaica, most ably and aptly led by Permanent Secretary Mrs. Colette Roberts-Risden. It is their unwavering commitment that ensures our services reach every Jamaican. And I want to particularly thank our Chief Technical Directors and the team that worked tirelessly on this presentation. Thank you all for your dedication behind the scenes as we work together to ensure that no one is left behind and that the People's Ministry succeeds. My heartfelt gratitude, Madam Speaker, to my executive team, my security team, and my constituency team for their hard work, sacrifices, and unwavering dedication. I am honored to have you by my side. Madam Speaker, the African proverb sums it up best. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I am here, Madam Speaker, because of the people of South East Clarendon. And to them, I continue to be grateful and committed. I must acknowledge my councillors who are here, caretaker, party workers, and supporters, all who continue to believe and support me and believe in our larger vision. Madam Speaker, we have a development plan and we will continue to develop our human capital and provide opportunities for our constituents, while we look forward to the significant agricultural and infrastructural developments to commence in this financial year. I want to also thank all of the ministries, departments, and agencies across government, all my cabinet colleagues that have continuously partnered with us and have been willing to go the distance to improve our service delivery to all people in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, today I will demonstrate, Mr. Speaker, my apologies, yes. Today I will demonstrate that the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is truly the people's ministry. Our comprehensive range of programs and services are designed to foster greater human capital development through the positive impact on the lives that we touch. My ministry delivers programs for everyone in all spheres of society, whether you are a baby in the womb or a 110-year-old super centenarian, Miss Nora Welsh from Hanover, who I met recently. Madam Speaker, a year ago, our Prime Minister tasked Minister Dunn and myself with the responsibility of taking this ministry on a journey of transformation. And that journey began with rigorous stakeholder consultations and social dialogue. We engaged our staff and clients in all 14 parishes across the island. Additionally, we engaged the public through social and traditional media, listening to their comments and feedback. What we realized, Mr. Speaker, is that our staff and clients both were seized with the need for transformation. The information that we gathered will be used to inform this wider transformation process. And while we're going through this process, we are taking steps to make changes that will immediately enhance the client's experience as they interface with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. That is why we have rolled out the MLSS Client Contact Center to improve communication access to the ministry, which is one of the primary challenges that we heard from our clients and Jamaicans. Mr. Speaker, let's get straight to it. A US $20 million investment will be made to enhance the effectiveness and expand coverage of our social protection programs through the Social Protection for Increased Resilience and Opportunity Project, SPIRO. We acknowledge also the support and partnership of the World Bank, with whom the government of Jamaica has recently signed this loan facility. One major activity under this project is the design and implementation of an integrated social protection information system, which will accelerate the transformation of the ministry's systems and significantly reduce processing time across all programs. The SPIRO project will also bolster employment services and labor market research tools. These initiatives, Mr. Speaker, will further widen the ministry's reach, ensuring that no one is left behind. Mr. Speaker, it's a big deal. We continue our thrust to improve our services, and we have done so by initiating a very important project, the Innovation Transformation Project, which prioritizes improvements through greater use of technology, innovation, and automation across all processes in our ministry. We interface with the most vulnerable in our country, and our goal is to make sure that we are as efficient and effective as possible in serving them. We have appointed an ITP steering committee comprised of representatives and experts in the private and public sector to provide strategic direction and oversight. Phase 1 will focus on greater use of digital payments for PATH, pensions, and other social benefits, and the development of an NIS portal for contribution tracking, a mobile application for overseas employment program, our farm work program, as well as the modernization of our work permit system. We are on the go, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're also thinking of new and dynamic ways to meet the critical needs of our people, and as such, we acknowledge the Marshall Hall-led Labour Market Reform Commission, which recommended the establishment of an unemployment insurance scheme. The need for such a scheme was brought into sharp focus by the COVID-19 pandemic. Through SPIRO, we will implement Jamaica's first ever unemployment insurance benefit. Mr. Speaker, Of course, we are putting it together and will make our submission to Cabinet further in the year. Mr. Speaker, empowering our youth through job opportunities and training is a strategic component of ensuring that we leave no one behind. The social intervention program in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is geared towards providing an avenue for employment, on-the-job training, and self-reliance through education and entrepreneurship support for our youth. I can proudly report that in 2023, through the SIP, 367 of our youths were placed in on-the-job training. 423 received education grants totaling some $50.9 million, while 534 members of PATH households received entrepreneurial grants totaling $87.1 million. Mr. Speaker, another 842 individuals from PATH households received skills training and certification through our partnership with Heart Trust and STA. Looking ahead to the new financial year, we are committed to strengthening those relationships with employers, ensuring that participants complete their training, and monitoring the entrepreneurship grant beneficiaries to promote economic sustainability. Mr. Speaker, by investing in these youth and fostering their development, we're not only securing their future, but we're also building a stronger, more resilient Jamaica for generations to come. I'm going to move quickly through. There's a lot. Let's turn our attention to an initiative instituted by this government, the Social Pension Program. It could not have come at a more opportune time, in the midst of the pandemic, when the need, Mr. Speaker, was greatest. This program represented a monumental shift in providing support to our elderly. Mr. Speaker, recognizing the gap that existed, the Social Pension Program was conceptualized by this government to target seniors over the age of 75 who are without a pension or any financial support and are not on path. Mr. Speaker, 14,932 Jamaicans are currently registered on the Social Pension Program. And in the last financial year, over $408 million was paid out in benefits. But there's more. The budget for this financial year was increased by a whopping 165% to $1 billion. Beginning this month, beneficiaries will receive an increase of over 76% in their bi-monthly benefits, moving from $6,800 to $12,000, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the program requires that applicants have a birth certificate or a passport to establish their age. And we know... Where's the passport? No, my apologies. My apologies. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But, Mr. Speaker, the program requires that applicants have a birth certificate or Jamaican passport to establish their age. My apologies. We have therefore strengthened our partnership because we know that there's some difficulties in some of our seniors identifying themselves. Yes. Sometimes it's hard. Some can't find the passport. We have therefore strengthened our partnership to enable seniors to obtain their birth certificate, and we work with them. I can also announce, Mr. Speaker, that we've made some changes to allow for increased flexibility while also maintaining the program's integrity. Where an applicant has no birth certificate or Jamaican passport, he or she can use a voter's ID or a photograph along with an attestation of another elderly person of similar age, both signed by a JP, to register for the program. We are breaking down the barriers. Persons can use their marriage certificate, birth certificate of the children, and school record, among other documents. We want to ensure that all who should be on this program are on this program. Mr. Speaker, This is evidence of a listening ministry, the people's ministry, prioritizing the people that we serve so no one is left behind. Let's move quickly to the work of the Public Assistance Department. For the calendar year 2023, Mr. Speaker, over $369 million was spent to assist approximately 10,600 Jamaicans through our rehabilitation program. Additionally, almost 7,000 food packages were distributed to vulnerable families as a part of our special Christmas intervention program. And Mr. Speaker, we continue to work tirelessly to ensure that they are not left behind. I'm going to move to an important issue: occupational safety and health. Yes. As we speak about needs, there is the need to equip Jamaica for employment and to prioritize workforce protection. Yes. The ministry has now received the third draft of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill, and we are currently completing the drafting instructions to be returned to the Office of the Parliamentary Council by mid-June. We are intent on ensuring that this bill is pushed through and completed. We will continue, though, as we press for OSH, to monitor industrial workspaces to promote safe and healthy work environments, to ensure that contractors and workers are adhering to the regulations and safety practices. I will be on the road, Madam Speaker. Let it be a warning. Mr. Speaker, for the financial year, the OSH Department conducted a total of 2,077 compliance inspections. The ministry received 163 accident reports, of which 4 were fatal accidents, 3 occurred on construction projects, and 1 at a factory. Mr. Speaker, accident prevention requires the combined efforts of regulators, employers, workers, and their representatives to ensure that unsafe acts and conditions are eliminated from our workplaces. I want to urge all employers and operators of industrial establishments to follow the rules and, if necessary, reach out to our OSH department for guidance or assistance. Let this be a warning. Mr. Speaker, moving quickly, the work of our Social Security Division is a living testament of the mantra, no one left behind. The ministry, the People's Ministry, touches the lives of every Jamaican. And this Social Security Division has been instrumental in addressing the needs of the most vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, it's more than 22 years that the program of advancement through health and education that we know as PATH has been supporting the needs of many of our most vulnerable. This is evidence of our commitment to Jamaica's Vision 2030 goal number 1. Jamaicans are empowered to achieve their greatest potential. This program accounts for 82% of the ministry's social assistance budget and 54% of the ministry's recurrent budget for the year 2023. It is a lifeline to approximately 302,000 beneficiaries. But what is important, Mr. Speaker, is that for the 2024-25 financial year, we have increased the budget for PATH by 28.8%. And in June, beneficiaries will receive an increase to their bi-monthly benefits. Mr. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to laud our Prime Minister for his insight in establishing the Jamaica 60 Hope for Children Trust Fund, a groundbreaking initiative. It's going to provide instrumental support to the long-term savings account to eligible children who would not otherwise have any support to look to when they turn 18. This fund will not only help to close the wealth gap, but also to break the intergenerational cycle of poverty for poor individuals and their families. Mr. Speaker, any child who is a part of the PATH household or a ward of state, once born in Jamaica on or after the 60th anniversary of our independence, August 6, 2022, can participate in this awesome program. Mr. Speaker, importantly, in April of this year, we acknowledged 29 PATH top achievers who, with the support of our program, have excelled in PEP and CSEC. We are proud of them, and we continue to encourage them along their journey. Additionally, we acknowledge 4 former PATH beneficiaries who have excelled in their academic and professional pursuits, and now we call them PATH Trail Blazers. Their achievement reaffirms the notion that it is not where you start, but how high you aim for your success that is important. Mr. Speaker, my Minister of State himself is also a living testament of what is possible. And a poor country boy is given the right support. Mr. Speaker, from Anata Bay, Dr. the Honorable Norman Dunn. Good boy. Look at him now. Mr. Speaker, recognizing the need for improvement on this program, despite all the successes, we have set out on a host of town hall meetings across the country. And we will continue to engage Jamaicans and stakeholders, listening to their views and recommendations, criticisms, commendations, all of that to ensure that we can design a better path. We have heard concerns regarding selection criteria, customer service, school feeding program, and recommendations for greater stakeholder collaboration. We are reviewing all of these things, Mr. Speaker, with the aim of crushing the myths that are out there. Too many Jamaicans still say or feel that merely having a stove, fridge, microwave, or flush toilet will disqualify you from being on path. When we are finished with this transformation, we will set the record straight. Mr. Speaker, path has been perhaps the most popular form of support, but it was never designed to meet the needs of all vulnerable persons. So one of the challenges that we're going to have to face is ensuring that we communicate the range of services so that persons who do not get on path do not feel rejected, but rather they feel that they can go to another program and understand exactly the benefits and the why. So we use this opportunity to remind all. We have programs that alleviate short-term economic shocks, and the goal is really to protect the most vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, quickly, I turn my attention to the National Insurance Scheme. Last year, we dispersed benefits to over 137,000 persons, both locally and overseas. We are acutely aware that for many retired persons, the NIS pension is their only source of retirement income. Therefore, it is crucial that they be able to access these funds in a timely and convenient basis. As a part of our service improvement, 76% of our NIS pensioners now receive benefits directly into their bank accounts. Mr. Speaker, a concern identified by the NIS pensioners relates to the life certificate verification process. It's just too tedious. So in response to that, the Ministry is working with eGov to introduce an electronic method to improve this process, and we will be piloting this new initiative in the third quarter of this financial year. Additionally, we are taking steps to introduce an automated process to make it easier for domestic workers and other non-PAYE persons to pay their NIS contributions. Mr. Speaker, based on the 2019 actuarial review and the positive performance of the NIF, the NIS benefits were increased by up to 76% effective April of last year. The review, as at March 31, 2022, is far advanced, and at the appropriate time, we're going to provide the details to the nation. What we do know is that the NIF the National Insurance Fund, and the NIS, the National Insurance Scheme, are inextricably connected. The NIF serves as a repository for all of the NIS contributions and related income. And I can declare to the nation that as of March 2024, the unaudited net asset value of the fund stood at $190.76 billion. This represents, Mr. Speaker, a 17.5% year-over-year growth. Mr. Speaker, we're now seeing positive results from the various reform initiatives which began in 2019. These include increasing the contribution rates from 5 to 6%, as well as increasing insurable wage ceiling from 1.5 to 5 million. These reform initiatives, coupled with the steady investment income, have resulted in a healthy stream of income available for long-term investments. So for this upcoming year, the National Insurance Fund intends to focus on several high-priority areas. I want to name a few. The continued reform of the fund to maximize, with a view to maximizing the rate of return on our investments, a revised investment policy to minimize risk exposure and ensure long-term sustainability, the realignment, Mr. Speaker, of the fund's real estate portfolio, divestment of low-yielding and non-performing real estate assets to optimize our investment strategy, a $209 million renovation of the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Office located on Ripon Road, the architectural design and plans for a new NIS office and government services center in Maypen, Clarendon at an approximate cost of $26.2 million, Mr. Speaker, and the projected expenditure of $35 million during the fiscal year to improve investment properties within its portfolio for compliance with the Disabilities Act and related building codes. Let's move on, Mr. Speaker, to the National Council for Senior Citizens. Let me remind Jamaica that the cohort of persons 60 years and older comprises the fastest growing segment of our population and currently stands at 13%. Through the National Council for Senior Citizens, your ministry, the People's Ministry, is working to improve the quality of life for our seniors. We are collaborating with the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, and we have launched the Oral History Project under the theme, A Century of Jamaican Stories. Mr. Speaker, our seniors have experience, wisdom, knowledge, and expertise, and it should not be lost, but rather recognized and preserved. Through this project, we will document our seniors' personal narratives that would not normally be found in history books. Mr. Speaker, as Marcus Garvey said, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to promote active aging during the last financial year, 2,223 seniors participated in 61 health and information sessions island-wide. 767 seniors participated in 45 digital financial literacy workshops, and 49 were enrolled in HEART NSTA technology training programs. Additionally, approximately 20,000 meals and food packages were provided to our most vulnerable seniors. Mr. Speaker, the National Council for Senior Citizens continues to drive the implementation of the revised national policy for our senior citizens and its broad plan of action. I want to hail our new chairman and members and indicate that we are grateful for the collaborative efforts of government and non-government organizations in creating a responsive framework for older persons. We're going to continue a robust public education campaign to stimulate behavior change towards elderly, as well as the development of a registry of older persons to enhance our ability to find and serve this group. Moving swiftly along, Mr. Speaker, to the legislative agenda. Mr. Speaker, for labor and social security, our laws are the cornerstone of fostering a robust and equitable workforce in our country. So we understand the importance of crafting and implementing effective laws. It is crucial if we're going to safeguard the rights and ensure fair wages and protect our vulnerable workers while providing safe working conditions. It is essential, Mr. Speaker, for our economic growth and social stability. So active on the ministry's agenda is the reform of the old archaic legislation. And we are advancing, in addition to us, the review of fines and penalties for several of our old labor laws, as well as accomplishing the goal of achieving decent work for all workers. We continue the work on the Labor Relations and Disputes Act, and we're moving to consolidate our laws. As a first step, with the support of the International Labour Organization, we will develop an employment and labour market policy, Mr. Speaker. I must acknowledge the Regional Director of ILO, Johnny Musa, and his team, who came to Jamaica, visited with us, and actually joined in one of our Labour Advisory Council meetings. We look forward to expanding on this collaboration. Moving swiftly to the national policy on productivity. This is, Mr. Speaker, the backbone of sustainable economic growth. It is productivity that drives innovation, enhances efficiency, and will truly improve the quality of life for our citizens. Mr. Speaker, our Prime Minister has been championing productivity, peace, and prosperity. Yes. And it is this ministry that holds the Jamaica Productivity Center. And our mandate is to facilitate and promote productivity improvement in Jamaica to drive sustainable economic growth, to improve living standards, and to enhance the nation's global competitiveness. We note, Mr. Speaker, that we have had our lowest unemployment rate of 4.2%. My chairman, Mr. Azan, and members will tell you that despite that, myself and Minister Dunn know that even with the lowest unemployment, we have to focus on productivity. Yes. So we're moving ahead to improve on this positive outcome and to drive productivity in Jamaica by workforce skill development, by introducing the technological innovation, by helping all private sector and public to know how to be efficient in resource management, by teaching our children, by ensuring that productivity is a lifestyle. One such critical policy being developed is a national policy on productivity. This is going to be a strategic tool to prioritize and improve this across all sectors. Mr. Speaker, it's all connected because the future of work requires our productivity. But the future of work, colleagues, is about flexibility and fostering a culture of continuous learning and innovation. So as we navigate this evolving landscape of the global economy, it is imperative that we proactively address the future of work in Jamaica. There is a rapid advancement of technology, integration of artificial intelligence, shifting economic paradigms, all of that while we have a changing working and workforce demographic. These present challenges and they present opportunities. And our vision for the future of work is rooted in Jamaica and its citizens being adaptable, being inclusive, being resilient, Mr. Speaker, so that we can ensure that every single Jamaican can thrive in this new era. The integration of cutting-edge technologies, ChatGPT, big data analytics. It is essential that we learn how to capitalize on those so that we can boost our productivity. And we are seeing an increase in the number of Jamaicans who are in the gig economy as platform workers, online, at home, a shift towards this flexible and remote work arrangement. Many are now benefiting significantly as they provide services or perform tasks online using apps. But as the nature of that work evolves, so too must our capacity to protect them. We are enhancing our social safety nets to provide comprehensive support for all workers, including those in these non-traditional forms of employment, ensuring that no one is left behind. Mr. Speaker, the upcoming conference that we will have in Geneva, the International Labour Organization Conference, is going to focus on the decent work in the platform economy, and Jamaica will be there. We will represent. Mr. Speaker, I want to also use this opportunity to announce and invite colleagues and invite the nation to Jamaica's own summit. Our Future of Work and Productivity Summit that will be held on June 19th to 21, 2024, under the theme, Enabling Sustainable Productivity Improvement and Innovation in Jamaica. We are preparing the nation. The Ministry also introduces its inaugural Innovation and Productivity Competition for the public sector to further encourage productivity. We must lead. This competition is going to identify the Public Sector Innovation and Productivity Organization of the Year, to be named in June, in honor of World Productivity Day, and our Productivity Week of activities will be celebrated also in June. It is important, Mr. Speaker, for us to have these competitions as a tool, one of many tools being used to foster a more productivity-focused public sector and to improve efficiency in the public service delivery. It's a part of what we will do for the summit and part of what we do in terms of preparing the workforce industry as the 6th industrial revolution is right here. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to move swiftly along to matters relating to a very important cohort. This ministry plays a pivotal role in fostering inclusion and safeguarding the rights of persons with disabilities. We believe that ensuring the well-being and inclusion of persons with disabilities is fundamental to any society. And through a range of initiatives provided by the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disability, the Early Stimulation Program, and our Abilities Foundation, we aim to foster inclusion and provide opportunities and services to persons with disabilities. During the last year, we provided training, assistive devices, and economic empowerment grants to more than 6,000 Jamaicans who are persons with disabilities. We are going to continue this work, and we are addressing the unique needs and challenges. The Early Stimulation Program, Mr. Speaker, treats with our children with disabilities under the age of 6 years old. A very important program. And some 3,124 children from 232 communities island-wide received early intervention services in the last financial year. 175 children received assistive aid. 1,910 received therapy. Mr. Speaker, 193 parents and caregivers also received training in coping skills and strategies so that they can care adequately for their children with disabilities. Our mobile intervention unit took this service into the rural areas and conducted 280 therapeutic sessions. Additionally, the Stimulation Plus Center, which is a school operated by our Early Stimulation Program, has seen a 90% increase in the number of children enrolled. Additionally, in this year, We plan to expand our services in the parish of Manchester and Trelawney and increase the number of specialized personnel working in this area. We have a plan to also train and introduce interns who will be able to move up the ladder into permanent employment in these specific fields of need. I want to acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, Sarah Minkara, Special Advisor on International Disability Rights Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor at the U.S. Department of State. She came to Jamaica, visited with us, and discussed Jamaica's effort in implementing the Disabilities Act and creating an inclusive society. We will be partnering with her, and she reaffirmed the need to see persons with disabilities through different lenses, not as persons that need charity or to be pitied, but rather as right holders who just want you to move the barriers out of their way. Mr. Speaker, this partnership is critical. It is partnership which is a catalyst for innovation and progress, where diverse strengths unite to create greater impact and achieve shared goals. And we acknowledge the partnership with UNICEF and the JCPD, Jamaica's social protection system and health system for delivery for persons with disabilities is now strengthened through that partnership and through the development of an interactive management information system for the Council. We're going to be able now to enable our medical practitioners to upload medical certificates electronically because of this partnership, thereby reducing the processing times for the disability certification. UNICEF is also supporting the development of a mobile application that will allow persons to remotely register, check their certification status, apply for grant assistance, and interact with the JCPD virtually. Mr. Speaker, our partnership goes also to the Canadian Local Funds initiatives, where together we have provided training in climate-smart technologies to 25 rural women with disabilities enrolled at the Abilities Foundation. Through another partnership with Microsoft Nova Data Center in Virginia, USA, 21 of our staff members and students of the Abilities Foundation received training and certification in information technology. And, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, with the success of that first cohort, the partnership is going to continue into this financial year to provide training to another 20 persons with disabilities. I want to take this time to recognize our long-standing partners such as Digicel Foundation, Food for the Poor, several of our private sector groups who continue to provide substantial support to the ministry and the community of persons with disabilities. I want to implore that every employer in Jamaica who has the facilities and the capacity employ a person with disability. Yes. If you can do so, you may very well see them as your best employee. Mr. Speaker, the ministry lauds the partnership between the JCPD and the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And we want to acknowledge the New Limb, New Life project. $54 million provided prosthesis to 200 clients of the JCPD. It is significant, Mr. Speaker, and we signed a memorandum of understanding on September 25th of last year, where some 58 clients with lower limb loss have received much needed prosthesis. Mr. Speaker, this project is a part of a wider thrust towards inclusivity and integration of persons with disabilities as productive members of our society. This is how this ministry
Mr. Speaker, the member's time for speaking having expired, I beg to move that his time be extended sufficiently to allow him to complete his presentation. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
House Leader, it will be okay if you find out exactly the amount of time that the Speaker needs to complete. it would be at this time remiss of us not to recognize the entry of a former minister in the administration in the 80s, and also recently former Speaker of this Honorable House, the father of the Speaker, Minister, Senior Pearnel Charles. Welcome, sir. As
I agree.
The question is on the floor, the request is on the floor for the time to be extended by at least no more than 30 minutes.
35.
Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too acknowledge Chief Ogebe of Agada. Mr. Speaker, we were speaking about a very important cohort, persons with disabilities. Let me move swiftly to just say, in addition to all that I raised before, we have launched the accessibility checklist, which serves as an important tool to provide Jamaica with the guidelines on how to facilitate the accommodation of persons with disabilities in the built environment. This tool was used to audit the ministry's office at Hero Circle, because we're starting at home, and I'm pleased to report that the findings were favorable, and we are moving further along in our efforts to ensure that there's greater accessibility across all ministries. Mr. Speaker, through the JCPD, we will be partnering with the Faculty of the Built Environment at the University of Technology to conduct a peripheral accessibility audit of ministries in the new school year. The aim of this exercise is to ensure compliance with the Disabilities Act by assisting ministries to identify gaps and also ensuring adherence to the accessibility standards and reasonable arrangements to accommodate persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, this checklist is on the JCPD website, www.jcpd.gov.jm, and it is accessible by QR code at the back of the booklet that you will receive. We implore all parliamentarians to ensure that you're sensitive to the use of this checklist. And in keeping, again, with last week's emphasis on Labor Day, Mr. Speaker, I want to again urge all Jamaicans to ramp up the access and show that you care. Mr. Speaker, in the current financial year, the ministry introduced now a pilot program for the employment, and listen carefully, of capable persons with disabilities for the first time ever in our overseas employment program. This is the innovation that we speak of, connecting our ministry. And this initiative involves partnering with the Abilities Foundation, engaging our overseas employers and partners, and establishing a support system to assist workers with disabilities during their employment. For the first time, we have a batch of 3 farmers who are persons with disabilities and who will now be participating in our farm work program in Canada, starting June. Groundbreaking, Mr. Speaker. Again, we are ensuring no one is left behind. We are focused, Mr. Speaker, on securing new partnerships with the city and guilds to include additional academic courses and continue now the hydroponic and traditional farming courses, which will also be conducted to further enhance a workforce from which we can pull that will be ready for employment. Looking ahead to this financial year, key areas of focus will include improving social and economic services, obtaining international certification of key business processes, and actively enforcing disabilities' rights. Mr. Speaker, as I close this era, I want to announce today that all these initiatives will now form part of the core of a new campaign a campaign to change the thinking and approach towards persons with disabilities. It is to be called I Am Able. The I Am Able initiative will increase awareness, improve access, and integrate our persons with disabilities across all sectors in our society. I want to thank Mr. Boswell in particular for assisting with the program for the I Am Able campaign. We also have the Disabilities Rights Tribunal, Mr. Speaker, which has been established, and I want to encourage all Jamaicans, all persons with disabilities who feel that they are wronged, reach out. The Disabilities Act ensures that you can find a place now to hear and settle complaints of discrimination. And so far, 5 cases of alleged discrimination have been referred to the tribunal. Mr. Speaker, we're going to move swiftly ahead. We have a new initiative in addition to the I Am Able campaign, an initiative that will help us to tackle the several issues that exist and to prepare for the challenges that will arise. And we're going to do so by working together through collaboration and using all support systems available to Jamaica. I'm proud to announce that we will have the launch of another groundbreaking initiative that we call the Jamaica Partnership Program. Through the Jamaica Partnership Program, we're going to unite all stakeholders at home and abroad to address the needs of our vulnerable groups, including elderly, persons with disabilities, and low-income families, to help them and help this nation to define and advance sustainable solutions, to leverage the expertise and the resources that we can find across Jamaica and the world through coordinated outreach and networking efforts. And we have witnessed already firsthand the impact of current initiatives where there is collaboration, such as the New Life, New Limb project, which provides support to so many. And we're developing the proposals, and we invite the private sector, the Diaspora, Friends of Jamaica, international organizations, join us as we work to identify ways to supply more assistive devices, to create community centers for seniors, and launch livelihood support programs for vulnerable individuals and low-income families. Especially now, Mr. Speaker, there is no greater cause than uplifting each other. This is how we will leave no one behind. I'm going to move swiftly into labor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we can proudly say that Jamaica is one of the best performing countries in the labor market recovery within Latin America and the Caribbean region. In 2022, the Caribbean region experienced a gradual recovery in labor force participation rates as workers returned to the labor market following sharp declines due to COVID-19. Jamaica demonstrated notable resilience, with our labor force participation rate increasing from 64.7 in 22 to 65.5 by the end of 2023. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, Jamaica continues to show positive improvement in the level of unemployment. At the close of 2023, the country registered what you know is an all-time low in our unemployment rate at 4.2%, compared to 6.6% in July 2022. These levels have outpaced the overall unemployment rates for the Caribbean and Latin America, which recorded 9.3% in 2021 and 7% in 2022. Be proud of your nation. Mr. Speaker, while more persons are employed, we recognize, however, that there are still challenges being faced in several sectors. Challenges that we hear from the PSOJ, from friends, from colleagues, in recruiting the skill sets that are required as we strive to improve our productivity. Within the local labor market, there are reports from employers within several industries of difficulty recruiting and retaining suitably qualified workers. The demand for higher wages and benefits has created a worker-driven labor market, as workers have taken advantage of the opportunity for self-employment and own account work since the pandemic. Additionally, some workers who were engaged in the online and the flexi work arrangements have remained in these types of arrangements. So, Mr. Speaker, from their perspective, some of them are no longer interested in employer-employee relationships, and some are. So we are taking an approach that has to be tailored to address these two distinct needs of the labor force. So first, will require us to continue our partnerships with HEART for entrepreneurship training and incubation centers to help to drive growth of emerging micro-businesses and green jobs. And the second tier will focus now on job readiness training for those who are seeking jobs. Mr. Speaker, we also recognize the urgent nature of the issue regarding to the shortage of skilled labor. And through programs like CARE and LIFT and other programs that the government is providing, we are working to grow Jamaica's labor force by providing training to every young person not currently enrolled in a training program. Mr. Speaker, training, technology, and modernization of workplaces are pivotal to addressing the demand for labor. It is crucial to prioritize the reskilling and upskilling initiatives. And so employers are encouraged to implement arrangements that are flexible as a means of improving output and productivity while you train. We are committed to improving and expanding the talent pool using our LMIS, our information system, to assist employers in their recruitment. Mr. Speaker, I want to laud our tripartite collaboration, and that is a collaboration between our employers, our unions and employees, and the government. Jamaica stands strong because we have a strong platform for social dialogue. And the trade unions still have a very important role in that tripartite. I want to take the opportunity to commend the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions for its active involvement as a member of the Labour Advisory Council. Mr. Speaker, I want to also commend the Jamaica Employers Federation for their yeoman service. And I want to extend my appreciation to Mrs. Helen Davis-White and Mr. David Wan, who served as past presidents of the JCTU and Jeff, respectively. And also to recognize the new leadership under St. Patrice Ennis and Mr. Wayne Chen. Can I also recognize, Mr. Speaker, Ms. Shirley Price, the former president of the Jamaica Household Workers Union, for her years of advocacy, which led to the development of the International Labour Organization Convention on Domestic Workers, C189. Can be proud of her, proud of Jamaica. The Speaker, moving swiftly through, over the past 8 years, this government, your government, has moved the national minimum wage from $6,200 in March 2016 to $15,000 effective June 1. That represents a 142% increase, demonstrating our commitment to workers and our commitment to ensure no one is left behind. Mr. Speaker, we continue to work through our electronic labor exchange and labor market information system, which is an online platform designed to connect job seekers with employers and also to collect data that we can use in terms to define better decisions and better policies. Mr. Speaker, we are making 4 major improvements in this area, however. Firstly, the electronic labor platform is going to be rebranded. Transformational. Transformational, sir. Yes. It will be rebranded as JamaicaJobs.gov.jm. A robust public sensitization program is going to be launched in social and traditional media. And Mr. Speaker, all jobs that are available across ministries, departments, and agencies of the government of Jamaica will be posted on jamaicajobs.gov.jm. I want to call on all MPs, encourage your constituents, employers, unions, partners, make important information available. Mr. Speaker, we will continue job fairs, career workshops, recruitment drives across all Jamaica. We're going to continue to do our job readiness training. Additionally, we are exploring a major partnership, hear me now, with Microsoft to enhance data on critical labor market supply and demand. Mr. Speaker, this is the People's Ministry. Yes. No one will be left behind. Mr. Speaker, a lot of work has been done, and this is a relay. I want at this time to acknowledge the work and the service of Mr. Kyle Samuda. I want to salute you, sir. And it will be remiss of me to not use the opportunity to also acknowledge another minister, former Minister of Labour and Social Security, who is here with us. Myself, you, and where is he? The Chief, Mr. Pearnel Charles. We salute you as well. Full of us. We're full of labor. And one of the things that we have worked together on in this relay is a work permit issue. It's challenging. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell the country that work permit under this transformational dual is being seen in a different way. We're facilitating bringing the right skills into our country and translating and transferring that knowledge to our people to make sure that Jamaica can stay apace with its growth. We understand the calls for greater efficiency, and we are doing something about it. Mr. Speaker, we are putting in place a new work permit system that is going to digitize and automate. And once implemented, that system will eliminate the need for paper-based applications, significantly reducing processing times and creating a more robust, integrated system. Mr. Speaker, we're working with the Transformation Implementation Unit, and this is funded by the Inter-American Development Bank. And these changes are part of the wider transformation that you heard us speak about. We're moving ahead. The Overseas Employment Program, which we all know and love, I want to turn my attention to that program. For several decades, it has been a beacon of opportunity for approximately 15,000 Jamaicans annually. Farm Work Program. Yes. Call the Overseas Employment Program, as it's properly termed. Hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans have benefited from these programs in Canada and the US, enabling them to earn a decent income, gain valuable experience, and acquire new skills that are transferable back here in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, in 2023, 9,587 Jamaicans traveled to Canada under the Seasonal Agricultural Worker Program, 626 of those participating in the low-skilled program. 4,306 Jamaicans were dispatched to the US for the agricultural work, and 1,238 deployed for hospitality. And plenty waiting to go. We are enhancing this program as a part of our transformation, and the future direction is sustainability. This ministry, People's Ministry, is committed to continuously improving the Overseas Employment Program to ensure that it remains relevant and beneficial to our citizens. To this end, we have implemented a number of key enhancements, from orientation, training, and certification. We started, Mr. Speaker, with an exercise inviting all parliamentarians to be sensitized. They represent the eyes and the ears of the Parliament at the constituency level. And arising from that, we have revised our orientation and selection process to include psychometric testing, revised literacy and numeracy tests. Additionally, we have expanded our pre-departure training programs to include training and certification in an effort to do what? ensure that no one is left behind. So if you come to the program and you don't get through, we don't want to send you back home. If you come to the program and we find out that you cannot read, we don't want to just send you back and say you failed. We want to take you and give you an opportunity to learn how to read. If you come to the program and you don't have enough skill, we want to take you and give you an opportunity to learn the skills. This is the people's ministry. No one should be left behind. We're talking about worker welfare. It is of paramount importance, and we have strengthened our support systems, increasing the number of liaison officers to provide comprehensive assistance, including healthcare service, legal aid, and counseling. And we have increased the number of liaison offices in our host countries so that we are equipped to address any issue that may arise, ensuring that our workers are protected and their rights are upheld. Of note, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, our liaison officers make routine visits to employers and to workers. And when we looked on the data from 2023 to this 2024 respectively, it has moved from 71 visits to 224 visits for the first quarter. Let me acknowledge the good work of all of my liaison officers across Canada and the US. Mr. Speaker, we are working with our government partners to ensure regulations and standards are satisfactory, and we actively seek to expand our partnerships with international employers. We are forging new alliances to provide more opportunities for more Jamaicans. We are also responding to the evolving global landscape, and we have initiated the digital transformation of the farm work program. Imagine that. This includes the development of an online portal that streamlines the application process, provides real-time updates, and facilitates better communication between the ministry, the workers, and the employers. This is the people's ministry. No one will be left behind. I want to acknowledge long-standing partners, particularly the High Commissioner of Canada, Her Excellency Emina Tudakofik, and our U.S. Ambassador, Nicholas Perry, and all of their teams. May our continued partnership be strengthened. Let me close. There's a lot more, but we will share that in news releases and press conferences to come. For now, I want to close my maiden contribution as Minister of Labour and Social Security, but it's not my first time here. This is the sixth portfolio. It is important, It's important to highlight the accomplishments of the Andrew Holness administration. I am proud to be a part of the Andrew Holness administration. I want to reaffirm the unwavering commitment of the government of Jamaica to advance the welfare of our citizens through the dedicated efforts of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Mr. Speaker, our tireless pursuit of equity, empowerment, and opportunity has not only transformed lives, but it continues to strengthen the very fabric of our nation. Mr. Speaker, one must recognize the significance of the increase in the national minimum wage, the second increase in over a year. There is also the increase in the minimum wage for security guards, a matter long overdue and well-deserved by those who work by day and night to provide a feeling of comfort and safety. They're at banks, they're at supermarkets, they're in schools, and in so many other areas of our daily lives. Mr. Speaker, we increased the budget for social pension benefits by a whopping 165%. And that is on top of an increase in the NIS pension up to 76% last year. Mr. Speaker, this is the people's ministry, where no one is left behind. Path beneficiaries are also enjoying an increase in benefits starting next week. That is because of a budget increase of 28.8%. Minister of Finance and Public Service, understands the importance of leaving no one behind. We will introduce unemployment insurance to strengthen the national safety net, Mr. Speaker, even as we expand to opportunities for employment in our effort to ensure no one is left behind. The 4.2% measure of unemployment is our lowest ever and remains, when I speak to colleagues, a globally admired and coveted achievement of which I am proud to be a part of the Andrew Holness administration. There is a New Limb, New Life program in connection with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We have launched our customer contact center, first ever, significantly increasing and improving the speed of access. And, Mr. Speaker, there is a new kid on the block, the Disabilities Rights Tribunal, which is being used. Additionally, for the first time ever, as I said, we can now say persons with disabilities on our farm work program. The accessibility checklist is important. And moving on to the critical program for this year, I Am Able. Mr. Speaker, there's so much that we are doing to ensure that no one is left behind. We are piloting a new electronic registration system at all of our parish offices, which will make registration for services and responses to queries on application and requests for information faster and more efficient. This is about increasing customer satisfaction. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, in continuing with the technology integration, remember, we have a new electronic work permit system being rolled out. We have the Transformation Implementation Unit working with us, and we have the Innovation Transformation Project that is cleaning up the ministry. Mr. Speaker, we are going to launch JamaicaJobs.gov.gm. We're going to launch the Jamaica Partnership Program. We're going to move forward and continue to collaborate, innovate, and advocate for a future where every Jamaican, regardless of circumstances, can thrive and contribute meaningfully to Jamaica's prosperity. Together, I want to implore all of us, let us build a society where compassion and solidarity prevail, and where the dignity and rights of all are upheld, not just some. This is the people's ministry, where no one is left behind. Mr. Speaker, we are listening, we are learning, we are improving, and as the people's ministry, we will be taking our services across Jamaica and working to ensure no one is left behind. I thank you. One love.
Very good speech.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that all members of the House will agree that this was truly a comprehensive, powerful and impactful presentation by a minister for a ministry that is truly leaving no one behind. Mr. Speaker, I now ask that you invite the member from St. Andrew Southwestern and Opposition Spokesperson on Foreign Affairs to make her presentation.
Yumi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the presentation that I hope to give today in relation to regional and foreign affairs is entitled, "The Time is Now for a New Direction in Regional and Foreign Affairs."
Was there a direction before?
Mr. Speaker, I am always mindful that I serve at the pleasure of the good people of St. Andrews Southwestern. Always mindful. And as I salute and thank them today, some of whom are here today, I renew my commitment to be faithful and true as I represent their concerns, hopes, and aspirations in this honorable House and beyond. In advocating and representing Southwest St. Andrew, I have relied on the support, advice, and assistance of my councillors, Eugene Kelly and Carl Blake, and the new kid on the block, Devon Jackson. I also extend, Mr. Speaker, my heartfelt thanks to former councillor Audrey Smith-Facey, who has just retired after 25 years of service. My gratitude also goes to my constituency secretary, who seems to have spent a lifetime in Southwest St. Andrew, and the rest of the team, including the staff at the office, Lexi, Doreen, Avis, Marcia, Juby, and Nash. They feel like family, yeah? They feel like family, so they all come together. Mr. Speaker, finally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the staff of the Houses of Parliament. Formerly, the former clerk to the Houses, Ms. Valerie Curtis, and now Ms. Colleen Lowe, for their technical support and dedication. And I especially want to salute Ms. Curtis and wish her all the best in her retirement. I pause for a moment, though, Mr. Speaker, to register my sincere disappointment in the recent imbroglio involving Ms. Curtis, including statements made against her, which have the potential to tarnish her exemplary record of almost 30 years of service to the Parliament. For the record, my disappointment stems from the absence of an apology for this injustice. And like the rest of Jamaica, I want to say it's not too late to do the right thing. Mr. Speaker, I am also deeply grateful to the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, Jamaica's first female Prime Minister. Yes, I thank her for the faith and confidence that Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank her for the faith and confidence she reposed in me to continue on the strong foundations of physical and social development and education that she laid in the constituency during her 40-plus years of service. To the opposition leader, Mr. Mark Golding, thank you, sir, for entrusting me with this portfolio of foreign and regional affairs at a time when Jamaicans here and in the diaspora are counting on us to guide them with sound strategies that address the problems of our time, to come up with effective and sustainable solutions, and to engage in effective public education and awareness around the work that we do. Mr. Speaker, a heartfelt thanks as well to the members of my task force who have been assisting me to represent and articulate positions on issues that reflect our collective commitment to an inclusive approach steeped in respect for the rule of law, human rights, justice, fairness, and dignity for all, at home and abroad. Finally, but significantly, I express love and thanks to my family for their unconditional support and love, especially my husband and sons, my sisters, and other family members who are indeed the wind beneath my wings. A very special thank you goes out today, Mr. Speaker, to my dear father, alive and well, Mr. Vincent Brown, a man of character and integrity, who has always wanted just to see his children past the worst, and who today is a witness to his hard work and commitment to his children. Thank you, Papa. A wise man once said that Jamaica has no army that can defend us externally. But we know that the impact of the work of our foreign service workers make them our external army. So today, I pay special tribute in the form of gratitude to our dedicated and professional foreign service workers deployed in embassies, consulates, and permanent missions across the world, and their families who also serve our country, and sometimes at great personal sacrifice. To our foreign service workers, we salute you. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at our foreign policy founded on that good neighbor principle, independent and principled, that we are on track with. No satellites. The People's National Party, Mr. Speaker, has always been the party that upholds the good neighbor principles, seeking to create meaningful engagements at the regional and international levels, without abandoning our responsibilities for the local issues that confront us. As a party in government, our struggle has always been to improve conditions for the people of Jamaica, and it has always been interdependent and inextricably linked to the wider struggle for improved conditions for the poor and less fortunate across the world. Indeed, Opposition Leader Mr. Mark Golding recently in his budget presentation stated that all our current proposals that address the growth and development of this nation are grounded in our core beliefs of social justice, equality, good governance, and accountability at all levels. And again I quote, as he said, that our international policy, therefore, and our relationship with the global family of nations are grounded on this principle of being good neighbors to all, while maintaining our sovereignty and our independence. Non-aligned. Mr. Speaker, accountability to the people of Jamaica and staying true to long-standing principles that govern regional and international engagement form the cornerstone of good governance. This means that there must be clear policy positions known to all Jamaicans on matters that affect our nation, the region, and the global landscape. Clear policy positions on international issues are essential for guiding our actions as a nation, demonstrating our responsibility to the global community. This means unambiguous and consistent positions and actions. This includes addressing situations such as what's happening in Haiti, which raise questions about our national border security while adhering to international protocols, or the Guyana-Venezuela dispute, which requires balancing relations while working towards regional stability, or the conflicts in the Middle East, which including the war in Gaza and their overall implications for global peace, solidarity, security, and stability. In this framework of accountability, we urge all parliamentarians to pay closer attention to the ever-changing nature of global matters that will ultimately affect and have a significant impact on the lives of their constituents. We must play a more active role and ensure that Parliament works as it should with important parliamentary committees like the Internal and External Affairs Committee, for example, examining, and I'm quoting from the standing orders in terms of what they're supposed to do, examining all matters relating to the foreign policy of the government, analyzing the implications and likely effect on Jamaica, examining treaties and other international agreements, and advising the Parliament of their likely impact of Jamaica. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we also need a revitalization of the parliamentary friendship groups, which would facilitate greater discussions of bipartisanship and bring some of these issues closer to the people of Jamaica. The time is now to have all committees of Parliament fulfill their mandate and include the Jamaican people in the discussions around foreign policy. Mr. Speaker, I pause for a minute to talk about the Jamaica-Cuba Parliamentary Friendship Group, which has not been active for a while, but I believe which is one around which, fortunately, there is a convergence of views on many related issues. So in fact, let me use the opportunity today to place on record our support of the statement from the Caribbean Communities Council for Foreign and Community Relations, welcoming the decision of the United States government to remove Cuba from its list of states that are not cooperating fully in the fight against terrorism. As this Parliament has done annually for several years now, I also want to join in rejecting the unilateral imposition of the blockade against Cuba for the past 60 years. We also call upon the U.S. government to remove Cuba now from the list of countries deemed to be state sponsors of terrorism. They're still on that, yes. Mr. Speaker, our relations with Cuba confirms their unwavering position of international solidarity and not one associated with terrorism. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if you know that today, May 29th, is in fact an important day in history. And so I'm honored to be speaking today as the United Nations commemorates the International Day of UN Peacekeepers. This is the date in 1948 when the first UN peacekeeping mission began operations in Palestine with a group of unarmed men. So today, we pay tribute to the brave men and women who have served and continue to serve the UN peacekeeping operations. We honor their memory, and in particular, those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of peace. It is interesting, though, that 76 years later, we are still reckoning with the crisis in Palestine. The risks faced by peacekeepers and the massive loss of lives in the ongoing war in Gaza. Today, I recall the words of a former UN Undersecretary General who said, and I quote, "Crises develop and people die, not because of big conflicts, but because nobody cares. And so today, I am reminded as well of the importance of our collective actions and care for those affected by this conflict. And this is why, as Jamaicans, we must care. Allow me, therefore, Mr. Speaker, because most of us, many of us, were absolutely stunned and collectively embarrassed when Jamaica ducked the vote before the UN Assembly for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza on the 28th of October, 2023.
Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, Mr. Speaker, the point of order, Mr. Speaker, I rise in the interest of all Jamaicans. A Jamaica that wins is a Jamaica that wins for everybody, whether you are government or you are opposition. Mr. Speaker, the presenter is misleading. The presenter is misleading. It's one Jamaica, you know. Mr. Speaker, the presenter is misleading.
Members, one of the members is on the floor on a point of order. Will we allow him to say his piece? Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The presenter is misleading the House. The presenter has no basis whatsoever, no accurate basis, no factual basis to say that Jamaica ducked a vote. Mr. Speaker, what happened on the day in question was clearly explained to the nation, Mr. Speaker. In fact, no, Mr. Speaker, I have not finished making my point, Mr. Speaker.
Based on what has just been said.
I have not finished making my point, Mr. Speaker.
I believe this is an abuse of the privilege
it is not.
of the Parliament. I really do.
Mr. Speaker, we must not try.
None of you have the floor. I am going to speak, and if you can't, I will say this again. If I turn your mic off, it means that I'm asking you to stop talking so that I can say my piece. If you all will keep quiet, then I will get to. Members, if I have to use a standing order to name you, I will name you. I'm asking you all to behave in a manner that is civil. Member Terrelong, please get to your point of order so that Member Burke can continue her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not only is the Speaker misleading the House as to what factually happened at the United Nations, the member must also note that for the last 76 years, Mr. Speaker, that this administration is the government.
Stop. Member, Remember, there's another point of order. If you allow your colleague to make his point of order, then you'll hear something.
Mr. Speaker, this is an abuse of the privilege that has been granted to the member. We are in the sectoral debate. It is unfair for the member to have to wallow through this deliberate attempt at preventing her from making her presentation. I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to rule the point of order out of order and to allow the member to continue her presentation.
Member Burke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, still today, in boardrooms and hallways of the world, the questions are being asked. How complicated could it have been for Jamaica to vote for a humanitarian truce? How many civilians did the government of Jamaica need to see before taking a decision?
No, not going to do it today. Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, the member is misleading the House on a matter of global importance. Mr. Speaker, the government of Jamaica...
Member,
yes.
Please, if you're moving a point of order, you have to make sure that your point of order is directed at the point that you're making.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
What I'm getting from you is a presentation which we don't want at this time. Please.
Mr. Speaker, the member has indicated...
Make your point of order.
The point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that in referencing the matter, the speaker has indicated that in boardrooms across the world, people are asking and people are wondering. To the contrary, Mr. Speaker, that is fallacious. It is misleading. Mr. Speaker, today, Mr. Speaker, to the contrary, boardrooms across the world, Mr. Speaker.
Stop. You don't have the mic. No, you don't. Please, you are given time to make a point of order, but you're making a presentation. No. Member Burke.
Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, 12 CARICOM countries, 12 CARICOM countries voted in favor of the resolution, demonstrating their principled positions on a principled matter that resulted in the resolution being adopted by a vote of 120 to 14. Mr. Speaker, it is true that in more recent times, there has been a move by the government of Jamaica to do some damage control by voting with CARICOM, with the rest of CARICOM, to recognize the state of Palestine. I acknowledge that, and I welcome that. But make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, as we travel across the country and the diaspora, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I'm speaking from individuals who have called and who have questioned and who have sent me the questions. Many Jamaicans are still sharing their disappointment and their embarrassment and are asking questions whether or not, for example, Jamaica supported South Africa in bringing the Israeli government before the ICJ for an emergency determination of genocide being committed against the Palestinian people and for the declaration of emergency measures in support of Palestine. They're asking if Jamaica supported the recent decisions of the ICC for the arrest warrants for 3 leaders of Hamas, as well as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. I'll tell you in a minute. For the record, Mr. Speaker, the PNP's position is pellucidly clear. We have long opposed and condemned the apartheid system, the displacement, cruel and inhuman. We have condemned and opposed the apartheid system, the displacement, cruel and inhumane treatment meted out to the Palestinian people over decades in their homeland. Yes. We regret and condemn all violence without exception taking place in the region and the wanton killing of civilians, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. We support and have always supported the two-state solution with an independent Palestine, free from Israeli control and authority. We join the call for Israel to refrain from all acts that threaten humanitarian aid getting to the civilian population in Palestine. With some 35,000 Palestinians over...
Member Fitz. I will say this. I recognize only the person who has the mic to speak. Everyone else is making noise. And if I have to speak to you again, Member Fitz. You're shouting. Member Burke.
With some 35,000 Palestinians killed, over 70% of whom are women and children, we condemn the collective punishment and the genocidal campaign being waged against the Palestinian people. And therefore, the Republic of South Africa had our full support in the case against Israel before the ICJ. Mr. Speaker, let me turn now to the Jamaican diaspora. It is no secret that we rely very heavily on Jamaicans in the diaspora for remittances, which support our balance of payments and provide this vital social safety net for family and friends in the absence of a more adequate support from the state. But the Jamaican diaspora represents much more than that, and they'll tell you that they do not want to be treated as an ATM machine. They are significant contributors to our national development and quality of life for many in Jamaica. Therefore, to their families, to their friends, charitable acts that they do for communities in which they grew and villages that they have. Therefore, their inclusion must be seamless and not fraught with bureaucratic red tape and political bungling. Their opinions must be voiced freely without fear of marginalization or exclusion. all views must contend in the best interest of our beloved nation. Mr. Speaker, the time is now to modernize and simplify the customs process, remove the red tape on verifiable charitable contributions, and engage in consistent public education and awareness of these processes. Very frustrating. On this side, we unequivocally support the appointment of senators from the diaspora. Let us recall, Mr. Speaker, that the Joint Select Committee in Parliament recommended back in 2010 this very idea. So it's not a new one, 14 years ago. And in fact, successive administrations on both sides have supported the call. Today, we renew that call and state emphatically that that is our position. This position, I believe, is even more crucial now as we are engaged in a national dialogue about constitutional reform. And we certainly believe that this has to be one of the issues on the agenda for discussion. We believe, Mr. Speaker, that the engagement of the Jamaican public in an exercise as important as a reform of our Constitution is one that is impatient of debate. The time is now for a new direction in how we deal with the people's business. I want now, Mr. Speaker, to speak a little bit about our regional and international obligations and the progressive, principled, sustainable approach that we think we should have. I couldn't do a presentation without touching on the essence of what truly inspires our motto, out of many, one people. Inclusivity, inclusion. As a country with such diversity as we have, we must continue to create a Jamaica for all Jamaicans, at home and abroad. Further, we must heed the call, Mr. Speaker, of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination to broaden the definition of racial discrimination in our Constitution and other legislations to include direct and indirect racial discrimination as we seek to tackle long-standing issues of classism and colorism in Jamaica. The time is now, Mr. Speaker, to have this discussion without weaponizing, as we so often do, the issue of race. When I hear some of the comments coming from ministers of government, it is clear to me that there has been no discussion at Cabinet around the issue of broadening the definition of racial discrimination and the violation that is being created. I stand resolutely, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand resolutely in defense of the inalienable right of every Jamaican, of Mr. Orlando Terrelong, as well as Mr. Mark Golding.
We are going to ask members of the gallery. You're here to observe, not to talk. Please, we are getting sounds from the gallery. If you continue, please desist.
I'm pleased to have listened to that comment. Mr. Speaker, I stand resolutely in defense of the inalienable right of every Jamaican, whether it is the member from East Central St. Catherine or the member from South St. Andrew, and I say, or West Rural St. Andrew, and I say to every single one of them that they can depend on me to reject any attempt, and here I quote, at nullifying or impairing the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise on an equal footing of human rights and the fundamental freedoms of political, economic, social, cultural, or any other field in public life. This is my solemn oath before the people of Jamaica, and in keeping with our international obligations under the Convention for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Mr. Speaker, we are running the risk of undermining international cooperation and the ultimate breakdown of international relationships and treaties if leaders in government and their apologists continue on this path, and there is no doubt that eventually the government and by extension the people of Jamaica will have a case to answer for racial discrimination. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we must ensure a more inclusive and realistic approach Mr. Speaker, we must ensure a more inclusive and realistic approach. I'm on to a different matter, but hear me out, please. To reporting and adhering to relevant observations and recommendations from both regional and international mechanisms in keeping with our principles and obligations. We cannot continue to send reports to international treaty bodies or charter-based mechanisms that do not.
Time for the disruption. 30 minutes. What? 30 minutes.
More efficiently.
30 minutes.
So, Mr. Speaker, the members' time have been expired. I beg to move that it be extended by 20 minutes to allow her to complete her presentation. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Member, you may continue with a time limit of 15 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, believe me that I'm not surprised. I was talking, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry. The question was asked for the extension of the time. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. You may now continue, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, colleagues. I was saying that we can't continue to send reports to our treaty bodies and charter-based mechanisms. And here I am referring, Mr. Speaker, to the 2019 combined 21st to 24th reports submitted by Jamaica under Article 9 of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, where Jamaica stated that, and I quote, Jamaica has no population that is considered as indigenous given that pre-Columbian indigenous tribes were exterminated during the period of colonization. And that's in paragraph 5. The truth is that we must acknowledge the reality that the Maroons and other groups are recognized both in definition and in standing as indigenous people by the UN and other mechanisms. The time is now for Maroons and Rastafari and other indigenous groups to be seen and heard in their own country. The time is now for a progressive review of our history and culture, acknowledging how it has shaped the present, and therefore being able to paint a true and faithful picture nationally as well as internationally. Mr. Speaker, the historical and current realities of the predominantly black population in this country are not lost on us. There's a global recognition of the inextricable link between slavery and colonialism and racial discrimination, inequalities, and underdevelopment. But, Mr. Speaker, the historical and current realities Mr. Speaker, the time is now for a courageous and inclusive conversation in Jamaica around these matters. As I said earlier, for too long, we have only been able to have the discussions weaponizing matters of race and colorism. Mr. Speaker, let us not forget that Jamaica has a historical and impressive reputation for its role in the global struggle for liberation against apartheid and other colonial maladies. The time is now, therefore, for Jamaica to reclaim that position in the world. Our voices cannot continue to remain silent on matters that today are being championed on the world stage, when yesterday we were at the forefront of those struggles. Time come, Mr. Speaker, for these discussions that we are having in these bodies to also be a discussion that engages our people, that they know very clearly what it is that we are doing as a government on their behalf. And so we call, Mr. Speaker, for the government of Jamaica to tell us what we have achieved as a country through the 10-year period of the decade, in terms of the decade of people of African descent, and also to tell us what concrete actions have been taken at the regional and international levels towards such causes as reparatory justice, indigenous rights, and our marginalized and vulnerable populations. I turn now, Mr. Speaker, to CARICOM. CARICOM, Jamaica was a founding member of CARICOM under the People's National Party-led government. We have been at the forefront of its founding, and we have stood firm in our belief in integration, regionalism, and collaboration among those in the Caribbean basin. We have benefited from a functional cooperation within the CARICOM institution and frameworks. Unfortunately today, it seems as if Jamaica has a diminished role within CARICOM, as if we put very little value on our relationship with CARICOM. So, issues around climate change, climate change finance, what we're doing in terms of collective resilience for the region. Again, there may be discussions taking place overseas. The point I am making is that the time is now for those international discussions to also be held in the country with our population, with the everyday Jamaican being a part of that. Mr. Speaker, we intend to return Jamaica to active engagement in CARICOM because we believe that it is important, not just bilateral relationship, but also the multilateral relationship as well. It is not hard to conclude that there is much that our dedicated foreign service workers can do to develop and deepen relations with our major trading partners. And we encourage them to do so. Our diplomats must be at the forefront of lobbying for change internationally against any unfair rule of international trade that favor big countries to the disadvantage of smaller developing nations. And the voice of the government must also be heard, echoing that and supporting that. We must not for one moment ignore any of our historical partnerships, whether it is with the AU or the European Union. It is always important to ensure that all of those are in good standing. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak very briefly about the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, because we have seen in recent times an explosion, as it were, in terms of the threat of cybercrimes all over the world, and Jamaica has not been spared. The Budapest Convention, which came into being in 2001, is coming out of the Council of Europe. However, we have had Trinidad and Tobago, who has requested accession. We had Grenada, who is now the newest member, and we have several non-Council of Europe members who are also there. In fact, these members come together every now and again, Mr. Speaker, to actually look at how they can improve and increase international cooperation around what is happening in cybercrime. And I wanted to talk about two issues that I believe would be important ways in which the Budapest Convention can help Jamaica if we were to participate fully, because as it is now, we don't. And so I'm going to talk first about protection against financial crimes and also about disinformation and the danger to democracy. So in terms of financial crimes and the burden that is placed on customers, Mr. Speaker, we live in a digital world. More and more banks are going online. In fact, we have some of our branches that have turned some of their operations into paperless ones. We see reduced branches, but at the same time, we are seeing globally an increase in cybercrimes. What we have noted, even from the Cybercrime Act that we have in Jamaica, is that it does not cover sufficiently the new and emerging crimes that we are seeing. So, for example, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that any number of us inside here would have had individuals, friends, or constituents who have come to us to talk to us about them being, their money being wiped out of their account. It is frustrating. It is traumatizing for many of them. One, it has been difficult sometimes to get through to the bank, as many of them have automated their services. Secondly, when persons reach the bank and begin to seek any remedy, you are told that they will close the account for 30 to 60 days, and then you have to wait until that time expires before you are able to access the funds that remain. Mr. Speaker, there are very few people in Jamaica today who can afford not to have access to their money for 30 to 60 days. Too many are working, living hand to mouth, and so that places an extreme burden on them. I believe that it is cruel and unfair for the banks not to shoulder more of the responsibility. I do believe that they have placed the brunt of the burden of protection on customers, many of whom are barely literate in this new digital age, many of whom are really unable to identify the phishing, the scamming, and all of that. And they still place the burden sometimes, Mr. Speaker, on the customers, even when the activity begins inside the bank. I believe that the time has come for us to do something different and protect our customers. By the way, Mr. Speaker, the second protocol on the Budapest Convention was meant for exactly that. And so I want us to call on the Jamaican government to request accession to the convention so that they can take advantage of the international cooperation and collaboration that is taking place to be able to protect our people. Mr. Speaker, today I will not talk about revenge porn, but it is an issue that requires our attention, especially because the majority of victims are women. And what it does, it strips them of their privacy and their dignity. So let me come now, Mr. Speaker, and talk about disinformation. Democracies across the world are facing a growing threat from disinformation and manipulation, which can undermine the integrity of our democratic processes and erode trust in our institutions. In Jamaica, we have come a long way working together to ensure that elections are fair and free from fear. To safeguard those gains, Mr. Speaker, we must facilitate collaboration between governments, civil society, and tech platforms to protect our citizens from false narratives and propaganda. This includes promoting fact-based reporting, regulating political advertising, and educating citizens on identifying and resisting disinformation. I'm also concerned Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I pondered long and hard about including this aspect. But the truth is, I cannot ignore public utterances by ministers of government and members in this very parliament. And therefore, my conscience calls me to speak about it in this House. Mr. Speaker, in this very House, we have had members of Parliament thank their social media warriors for work they have done on their behalf. And don't get me wrong, I believe that good work needs to be lauded. But can you imagine my surprise when I heard amongst the names of individuals being congratulated, an individual who has been at the forefront of spreading lies and engaging in a campaign of destruction to damage the reputation of colleagues. It is equally disturbing, Mr. Speaker, when the basis of those lies and personal attacks are rooted in, let's say, speculation about who my father is or was. For the record of the curious, my father is a 96-year-old Jamaican who is alive and well. And at his ripe old age, he can proclaim that he has never been inside a police station or a courthouse, nor has he ever been under investigation at any point in his entire life. But let's say, Mr. Speaker, that my father was a criminal. Does that automatically make me a criminal? Shouldn't my actions as a committed Jamaican speak for me? I say that it should. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that far too many individuals have leashed campaigns against their political opponents that are based on nothing but fabrication and almost with malice aforethought. It is equally disturbing if the basis of these lies and personal attacks are... No, I'm sorry, I got lost for a moment. Mr. Speaker, now more than ever, we need to safeguard the truth and prevent manipulation of the public and the deliberate use of disinformation. This is a threat to all of us as we serve with our own conscience as our guide. So, Mr. Speaker, any member of the government repeats a story that is aimed at causing confusion and distorting the truth, we should all be worried. Any member of the House, absolutely. And even worse if it is a minister of government. Recently, many have been left to ponder as misinformation deflected other important national issues. We all know that Mark Golding, like many others in this parliament, is both Jamaican and a Commonwealth or British citizen. We know, as is permitted by the current Constitution of Jamaica. And this has caught none of us by surprise. To continue to carry that story, Mr. Speaker, that he has done something wrong is dishonest. To continue to push this story for cheap political gain is despicable. The time is now for parliamentarians to live up to being an honorable member of this House. The contribution of a patriotic Jamaican, born and bred Jamaican, like the member from South St. Andrew, should never be diminished because of who his father is, especially when that father has left an impressive legacy of service to Jamaica. Nor should he be vilified by unscrupulous individuals seeking to score cheap political points by engaging in pedestrian politics for self-aggrandizement. For the record of the curious, don't pay no mind. For the record of the curious, Mr. Speaker, the member from South St. Andrew, his father, Dr. Sir John Golding, is not related to any slave owner. Full stop. Go do your homework and remember.
Oh, you know otherwise. When you start speculating.
Member, your time has been spent.
I'm wrapping up, Mr. Speaker.
2 minutes.
I'm wrapping up. Mr. Speaker.
House Leader.
2 minutes.
So, Mr. Speaker, the members assured us that she's absolutely wrapping up in 5 minutes max. Yes. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, God.
Member, you have 3 minutes in
Thank you,
which
Mr.
to
Speaker.
wrap up.
Mr. Speaker, I ask members in this House and elsewhere to go do their homework. And I remind them that searching for David Cohen is like trying to find John Brown. And I leave that there. Mr. Speaker, allow me to end by saying a little bit, just a few of the commitments that the next PNP government is making to the people of Jamaica. The next PNP government, led by Mark Jefferson Golding, will engage in effective public awareness, public engagement, and public education to ensure that there is transparency with the people of Jamaica and in the diaspora about the work of the Foreign Ministry. The next PNP government will ensure a more robust cybercrime bill, leveraging the protocols and advances achieved under the Budapest Convention, ensuring that we enhance the policy framework to strengthen enforcement capabilities and improve investigative techniques through international cooperation. The next PNP government will engage the Jamaican society at home and abroad on many other critical issues. The next PNP government will return Jamaica to active engagement with CARICOM and align on inclusive partnerships. The next PNP government, Mr. Speaker, will chart a new direction for foreign and regional affairs, founded on governance and marked by accountability and transparency. The next PNP government will ensure that constitutional reform involves useful and essential perspectives from the diaspora and our expanded citizenry. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the next PNP government will lead by example, ensuring that divisive and consistent positions in defense of policy, that there is a true spirit of collaboration, not afraid of courageous conversations where persons might differ from the ones that we are placing on the ground. The time is now for us to ensure that all Jamaicans feel as if this piece of the rock is theirs.
Mr. Speaker, it does reflect the the diversity of positions that debates of this nature can in fact take in this honorable House. We thank the member from South St. Andrew for adding to that. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the sectoral debate until Tuesday, the 4th of June at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the sectoral debate be suspended. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
I now beg to move that you recommit all items on the agenda from announcements to public business. May it please you.
The question before us is that we recommit to the item on the agenda. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Statement by ministers. Announcement. Bills brought from the Senate. Sorry.
Laid on the table of the House are the following: Annual Report of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security for the year 2022-2023. Ministry of Labour and Social Security Statistical Bulletin for the year 2023. Annual Report of the Jamaica Promotions Corporation for the financial year ended March 31, 2022. The Conch Export Levy Rate of Levy Order 2024 and its resolution under the Conch Export Levy Act. And finally, the report of the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee on its deliberations on the reports of the Integrity Commission regarding investigations into the unknown whereabouts of motor vehicles from the Ministry of Transport and Mining, the failure of certain public officials to make statutory declarations for various periods and or to provide information as requested. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions. Papers. Report from committees.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee on its deliberations on the Integrity Commission and the report in relation to the investigations into the unknown whereabouts of motor vehicles from the Ministry of Transport and Mining, the failure of certain public officials to make statutory declarations for various periods and or provide information requested.
House Leader, would you want to read it a second time, please? Because you may have missed out a few words.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee on its deliberations on the reports of the Integrity Commission regarding investigations into the unknown whereabouts of motor vehicles from the Ministry of Transport and Mining, the failure of certain public officials to make statutory declarations for various periods and or provide information requested. That's what was there.
Notice of motion given orally.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House I will move. Be it resolved that the report of the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee on its deliberations on the reports of the Integrity Commission regarding investigation into the unknown whereabouts of motor vehicles from the Ministry of Transport and Mining, the failure of certain public officials to make statutory declarations for various periods and or provide information requested, which was laid on the table of this House on the 29th day of May 2024, be adopted. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House I will move. Whereas Standing Orders 32A1 stipulates that the sectoral debates shall not last longer than 6 weeks in each year. And whereas the 2024 to 25 sectoral debate commenced on April 30, 2024, and the 6-week period will therefore expire on June 4, 2024. Be it resolved that notwithstanding Standing Orders 32A1, the sectoral debates be extended until June 25, 2024. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion.
Question and answer.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. Whereas Section 31C2 of the Conch Export Levy Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the Minister may, from time to time by order, subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives, prescribe the rate of levy to be paid to the Veterinary Services Division by exporters for any conch season after the 2010 conch season. And whereas on the 21st day of May 2024, the Minister made the conch export levy rate of levy order 2024. And whereas it is desirable that the conch export levy rate of levy order 2024 be affirmed, now therefore be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. This resolution may be cited as the conch export levy rate of levy order 2024 resolution. The conch export levy rate of levy order 2024 is affirmed.
Questions and answers to questions. Motion that may be taken at the commencement of public business requiring a notice. Motion relating to sitting of the House. Motion for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the standing orders in order for me to take the motion in respect of the extension of the sectoral debate 2024-25.
The question is before the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the motion be approved.
The request is before us on the table. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion in relation to the report of the Integrity Commission's Oversight Committee on its deliberations on the report of the Integrity Commission regarding investigations into the unknown whereabouts of motor vehicles from the Ministry of Transport and Mining, the failure of certain public officials to make statutory declarations for various periods and/or provide information as requested.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, the report having been tabled, the assumption, of course, is that members have read the report, but permit me to indicate the findings of your committee that met with regards to the investigations presented by the Integrity Commission. The findings of your committee, Mr. Speaker, on the report of investigations concerning allegation of impropriety and irregularities in relation to the unknown whereabouts of certain Government of Jamaica motor vehicles belonging to the Ministry of Mining and Energy. The investigation also in terms of reports concerning that of Mr. George Callahan, former CEO of the Sugar Industrial Authority, that he made false statements in the statutory declaration filed by him for the years 2018 to 2020. Investigation report into concerns that Mr. Trevor Clark, an employee of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, failed to file his statutory declarations with the Integrity Commission for the year 2019, 2020, and 2021 in breaches of the Integrity Commissions Act. An investigation report into concerns that Mr. Charlton McFarlane, I beg your pardon, an employee of the Registrar General's Department, failed to file his statutory declaration with the Integrity Commission for the years 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 in breach of the Integrity Commissions Act. Investigation report into concerns that Mr. Dwayne Vaz, a former Member of Parliament, failed to provide information requested by the Commission in respect of his statutory declarations for the year 2019. Investigation reports into concern that Mr. Owen Reed, an employee of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, failed to file his statutory declarations with the Integrity Commission for the years 2019, 2020, and 2021 in breaches of the Integrity Commissions Act, and investigation report into concerns that Ms. Ava Williams, manager, Jamaica Customs Agency, failed to file her statutory declaration with the Integrity Commission for the years 2018 and 2019. Mr. Speaker, having considered the above-mentioned reports, your committee is in support of the recommendation of the Integrity Commission with respect to each of the investigation. The members are of the opinion that where a declarant has been referred for prosecution, but a decision is taken not to prosecute, the reason for such decision should be included in the report to Parliament. The view was expressed by members that this would protect the Commission from public perception and also that there is any sense of arbitrariness or bias in making such decisions. Your committee, Mr. Speaker, requested that updates on the final outcomes of investigations be submitted to Parliament. Additionally, it is critical that once public officials have been discharged of their obligations, their declaration should be certified and that information should also be disseminated. Your committee also sought to determine how the Commission would address cases where information was requested from declarants, but it was not within the declarant's power to provide the same, and therefore it has to be sought from a third party. Officials from the Commission advised that sufficient time was usually given for information to be provided, and where necessary, an extension would be granted. During the deliberation, Mr. Speaker, your committee indicated its commitment to providing oversight to the Integrity Commission. The members of your committee, Mr. Speaker, are unanimous in the view that the commissioners should appear before the committee from time to time to discuss broader policy issues and to give an account of the activities of the Commission. Your committee is of the view that the matter of whose assets and declaration, your committee is of the view that the matter of who assesses the declaration of the staff of the Commission should be given priority attention. And that had the committee engaged for a while, because that was very important. No, it was actually a point that you, I'm sure, will be familiar with. But it was a point that had unanimous acceptance. And in fact, it is one that has been referred to the Joint Select Committee in terms of the discussions that are going on reforming the Act. Finally, Mr. Speaker, your committee wishes to express gratitude to the Clerk of the Houses of Parliament and the staff for their administrative and other support, and also to acknowledge the support of the technical team from the IC that attended unto us. May it please you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other matters for public business relates directly, of course, to a bill shortly entitled the Customs Act 2020, which will be taken by the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Nigel Clark. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Are you, House Leader? Are you going to close this debate? Okay.
Mr. Speaker, this is not going to go down as one of the greatest days. We've started too early this morning, and we've had a long, long day. But Madam, Mr. Speaker, permit me to now ask that the report be adopted.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, the bill shortly entitled the Customs Act 2020 is before us today. It has been here on a previous occasion, after which it went to a Joint Select Committee of Parliament that considered the bill, and over the course of between 1 and 2 years, I can't remember, the bill was thoroughly interrogated by the Joint Select Committee, had the opportunity to hear the views of stakeholders across the society. Those views were incorporated, and a report was tabled in this House on the results of the Joint Select Committee deliberations, and that report was tabled and passed. We would ordinarily have gone straight to committee after that. However, the Customs Agency just had some further things to do prior to that. So we're here now to complete the process of taking the bill as amended by the Joint Select Committee, and I think the amendments have been circulated, and to take it through its stages today. Now, the bill is a large one. It's over 200 clauses, 281 clauses across on 200 pages, but the entire bill with its schedule is 1,000 pages long. I don't think that we want to stay here until 2 a.m., so we're going to have to be very practical in how we go about it. But the bill, Mr. Speaker, represents a transformation in the way in which citizens of Jamaica and users of our ports and other ports and airports engage with customs. The first aspect of the transformation is the simplest one, and that is in one document. We have the entire Customs Act along with all of the schedules. Today, if you try to replicate this, you would need maybe 40 or 50 different documents. to take account of all the amendments that have been made over time and all the schedules that exist. So the situation today is one that gives an advantage to entities that are more resourced because they have the opportunity, they have the personnel and the resources to be able to deal with the complexity of 50 separate pieces, 50 separate documents. By having everything in one schedule, what we do is we level the playing field. Because the business that has 2 people in it or a sole trader can understand the document. All they want is for it to be in one place. Yeah. So if there was anything else that we accomplished, just being able to have one document that has everything in there is a major step forward. The bill modernizes how we deal with customs, and I don't propose to go into a clause-by-clause speech. One was prepared for me, but this would take me 2 hours to do. It's 288 clauses. So if I did clause-by-clause, that would take me another just 2 hours before we get to committee. So I think in the interest of time, given that we've spent years on this bill, the bill was first tabled in 2020, with a joint select committee that was televised, it was on YouTube. I don't think there's need for me, it would be redundant to go through clause by clause. As we go through clause by clause, anything that represents, that we want to comment on, I will defer my comments until then. I must say that the joint select committee certainly was one of the highlights of my time thus far as Minister of Finance and the Public Service. The collaboration in that committee was exemplary, and the contribution from all members was highly appreciated. And even though the bill is not yet passed, I will certainly have to say that the member from the other side who led his side in terms of the contribution to the bill was most constructive and operated in a manner that I greatly appreciate, and we would not be here without his contribution. So just say thank you to him. So, Mr. Speaker, I would propose that you put the motion to the House to resolve itself into a committee of the whole House. Oh, no.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would have loved to make my intervention while my colleague from Southeast was sitting in the chair. Mr. Speaker, I fully appreciate the remarks made by the Minister. But, Minister, it is indeed a very extensive document. And the truth of the matter is that it is persons who are involved in the trade that uses the document more often than the average citizen. And it is so extensive that the average person is not going to peruse from all 1,000 pages. That said, could we agree that some sunset period for review is set? Because it is when persons are experiencing the act over time that they may come into elements in it that they need to address. But it's in the law. And to get, let's be frank, government on either side to initiate for those things, it will just never happen. So if we could agree that every 2 years or 3 years or some prescribed period, there's a review so that the public knows that, this is in there now. You believe it's unfair, unjust, unreasonable. When it gets to the review period, it can be dealt with and the issue be addressed. So anyone in the public at large who might feel aggrieved, and I hear you, Minister, about the consultation in the Joint Select, but even then, because it's such a specialized document, many persons who would be affected or might be affected just never participate. But we don't want to close the door and any Jamaican who have a reasonable concern or is aggrieved by what a provision is won't get it addressed by the government. So if we could agree on some set schedule, 2 years, probably 3 years or so, for that review, when any concern could be amassed, take not that time and we move on.
Speaker, thank you for that comment. I think the concern is a reasonable one. I mean, after all, this bill replaces the original customs bill of 1941. 1941, with many amendments over, right? But amendments are all in different places. So when you make this kind of sweeping change, there can be unintended consequences in implementation that only arise when people have the experience. So yes, it would make good sense to, I would say 2 years is probably too short, but say 3 years after implementation, because it doesn't get implemented the day we pass it, right? So 3 years after implementation, we definitely review. We might have to, you know, might have to do stuff before, depending on the nature of the circumstances. But we can't, so I agreed with that, but we can't shy away from making the change, because what is to be gained is far more than any inconveniences that might arise. But it is, your remarks are, I think, well-founded, and I accept the substance of the suggestion about having a review in 3 years. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, let me just, I think the Minister has framed the procedure and the proceeding for today, the contribution from the member from St. Catherine, Southern, also clarifies, I think, an important aspect of what I think we should do to ensure that there's some management of the process going forward. I would also say that part of the reason it has taken this long is that there was the request that as we went through the bill and recognized that there are some aspects of the bill that needed detailed regulations and rules around them, that the process was halted to ensure that that proceeding went along with that. And the intention was to have the rules and regulations attached to the bill in its final stages so that there would be clarity, a greater clarity from users, particularly the customs, the stakeholders in customs. However, I think it is the case that those rules and regulations may themselves be taking a bit longer than I think was anticipated. And in any event, there's the agreement and the understanding on both sides that the act will not come into effect immediately, or in fact, until the rules and regulations are brought to the House and passed. But I think it does no harm at this point, particularly with the review mechanism that has been agreed, that if we were to proceed and to then recognize the regulations and the rules as they are completed, I think they'll give some clarity. So with that, I think the opposition has no objection to proceeding in that way, and if we could do it in the most efficient way. The amendments, I see there are some amendments here, and as we go through, we'll look at the amendments. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the contribution of the member. Indeed, the principle is that many of the clauses in the bill speak to or require rules to be promulgated to govern how those clauses are going to actually take effect. And to ensure that we have clarity and transparency, the ideal is that the regulations are passed before the law comes into effect. It means that Customs has a lot of work to do. It has to be balanced against the fact that we need the new regime to come in place, because it's really a step change positively. So, Speaker, with your consent, if you could move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill.
The House will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole House to consider a bill shortly entitled the Custom Act 2020, clause by clause. At this point, I put clause 1. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. I put clause 2 to 4 as amended. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes.
Go through clause by clause, because I think there's a better way to proceed, which is to accept all the amendments as have been circulated, and then once we have approved on these, then we just incorporate them into the draft bill and approve it en bloc. Approve it en bloc.
I mean, we're in committee? Yes. Yes, Chairman, I would agree and support with the proposal from the opposition leader in the House.
So we take it en bloc. As the request is on the floor, those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Chairman, I know that you're planning to go through clause by clause, but recognizing the fact that the bill has been in this House for the past 4 years, it spent 2 years in our Joint Select Committee, and we've accepted the amendments, I ask that you put the entire bill to the committee as amended, along with the amendments, for the committee to vote on that.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I now put the bill to include the amendment to the bill to the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage. With the amendment, those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. I do report the bill as having passed committee stage with 59 amendments.
Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I now ask that the bill be read a third time.
The question is that the bill be read a third time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled, An Act to Replace the Customs Act and to Provide for Connected Matters, read a third time and pass.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. It is, I must record my gratitude to the members of this House on both sides. Today is a momentous day because we have repealed and replaced the Customs Act. An act originally passed in 1941. 1941. Yeah? That is 85 years ago. Before universal adult suffrage. It wasn't passed by elected members. People elected by the people, for the people. It was passed before that. And then with all of the amendments that have taken place since, for a country that depends on trade. Remember, trade is 80% of our GDP. And we have had this suboptimal situation for a long time, with the support of my colleague on the other side, who we worked really well in the Joint Select Committee. With that support, and with the support of the stakeholders, with the support of the Attorney General's chambers, with the persons from tax policy in the Ministry of Finance, with the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, with the Ministry of Finance, and the Legislative Committee of Cabinet, who had to deliberate on 1,000 pages, as if they don't have enough work to do. Cabinet itself, and members of the Joint Select Committee of both sides. Just say a big heartfelt thanks that we've reached this milestone. We now look for its passage in the other place and for the regulations to get passed so that this new day of a brand new and modern Customs Act can become a reality in Jamaica. But today is a good day, and I say thank you to all members of the House.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, what? No, but the opposition have said something. We shouldn't close. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me acknowledge that this is indeed a step change in our customs process, our custom administration, and it's a good day that signals to the country and to the business community, particularly those who trade in goods and import services, that we're making progress on a very substantial piece of legislation. Let me say the opposition supported this effort. This has been a continuing effort over the years, as we've mentioned. But more importantly, the opposition recognizes and understands that critical to its vision of the logistic hub and the rule for the logistic hub in Jamaica, this had to be amended. And in that process of amendment, we believe that we are a step closer as well to the implementation of a logistic hub for Jamaica. So both sides had an interest in the matter being dealt with and to be addressed, and therefore today we join in the cause for optimism that we are that much further down the road. And as I said before, we look forward to the passage of for the resolution being brought here. These are complex regulations and rules, and Minister, I think we can discuss how best that can be handled in the same kind of efficient way, but there must be a way for those regulations and rules to be reviewed, perhaps not as in the same manner as the Act itself, but I believe that there should be provided, given the scope of those rules, and the size, the complexity, that there must be an opportunity and an opportunity to do substantial reviews before it's taken to the House. Because in the House, the resolution, it simply will take too much time unless we're going to spend days going through it. So, but we'll need to have that opportunity to do a review of it prior to it being brought to the House. And with that, I want to congratulate all for this very important day.
So, Mr. Speaker, this is really a very special, unusual, but very effective day. In fact, it's the first time in my nearly 40 years in this House that we've had a debate after the debate. but the nature of this particular achievement on the part of all of us deserves that comment, because in fact both sides work so hard together to achieve this outcome. Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business today. I therefore invite you to adjourn this Honourable House until Tuesday, June 4, when we will continue the sectoral debate, and the speakers then will be the Honourable Darrell Vaz, Minister of Science and Technology, and Mr. Michael Phillips, the member from Manchester Northwest. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the House do now adjourn for Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Steam it, fresh so me need it. Tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make roast it. Farm fresh so me need it. Tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make fry it. Fresh so me need it. Tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. If you want your children to improve, let them overhear the nice things you say about them to others. That was a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5.
This has dire impacts, as debt servicing in many Caribbean small island developing states pay salaries and even channel funds towards education. For many citizens, this will result in economic hardship. For example, debt interest payments in Suriname far exceed wages and salaries in the Ministry of Defense, subsidies in the Ministry of Education, and even spending on roadworks and other critical infrastructure. To stabilize their finances, governments are forced to implement austerity measures. This redounds to less spending on public services like healthcare and education and higher taxes. At the close of 2022, 8 Caribbean countries had debt levels exceeding the 70% threshold the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank recognizes as a key inflection point where debt sustainability becomes a growing concern.
Sovereign debt has more or less have a negative impact in various sectors across the region, and I think across the various years we've seen a multiplicity of reactions and factors that play to that. We've seen the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen what now to be the war in Russia and Ukraine, and rising inflation rates across the US, the global north, and how it's impacting the global south as a result.
If we look at the effects of the national debt on our foundation, we can generally say inflation, and that causes price increases, especially to provide for nutrition. Last month, I noticed a weekly increase of 500 SRD, which you immediately notice. Also, your staff. The government makes wage adjustments, but we cannot, because our prices are increasing, but our income is not increasing proportionately. So you notice it there too. What we try to do is to make as many cutbacks as possible where necessary.
The effects
that we experience in the care of the elderly of the government national debt are particularly noticeable in the implementation of the IMF rules that must be applied.